following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
So what are we going to talk about tonight?
I don't know. There's not much going on out there in the world of sports.
You heard about the chink in the arm of the Campbell football team.
Yeah, they actually gave up.
They did. The shutout's over.
Were those three field goals, or is there a touchdown
I
involved?
believe it was 3 field goals.
Okay.
Coach Gush's, 3 games of shutouts is over, and now he's, his defense is giving up. I figured it out today, 2.25 points per game.
Not too shabby.
Still less than a field goal. Pretty impressive.
That is very impressive.
And there was something else in the news Sunday about kneeling.
Oh.
Kneeling, that's what it was.
Cam Neely? Oh, kneeling.
Kneeling.
Yes.
Yeah, kneeling.
Yeah.
Cam Neely? No, I think this was about players deciding to rebel against the current sitting president, who made some remarks about the fact that if they...
Disparaging remarks,
and he wanted those sons of bees to be fired if they took a knee.
He likes that word.
He does, and he's made it famous from his TV program, The Apprentice. But nonetheless, I was personally disappointed with the amount of teams and players that participated in the kneeling, because I feel it's disrespectful to the flag, to the Star-Spangled Banner, to the men and women that have served our country. And I don't feel that their platform should be used during the national anthem. In fact, I saw a picture today on Twitter of the national anthem being played at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and a young man took a knee. Yet they claim that it's not about the flag and it's not about the anthem.
That's a misguided person right there.
Yeah.
That's a definitely misguided individual.
They feel that there's social injustice going on, which may be the case. I just don't think that for what folks tune in for on Sunday to enjoy football, they should be. I don't think that I'm disappointed in the owners. I'm disappointed in Bob Kraft. I'm disappointed in some of the other owners that didn't take a stand. And I believe the Kansas City Chiefs did take a stand and told their players, "We'll release you if you take a knee."
I'd like to see it if Kelsey if Kelsey took a knee. I'd like to see if they actually did.
Yeah.
But I don't think he would have done it.
Right, and I heard a radio interview Monday morning from former Patriot guard Matt Light. I don't know if you heard that.
I heard that. Yeah.
And essentially his comments were.
He wasn't the only one. There was a lot of ex-Patriots.
No, but he's a pretty eloquent speaker and knows how to get his point across. And he talked about how he was in a box at Gillette with a World War II veteran, a Navy SEAL, and the widow of a Navy SEAL when the national anthem was being played, and that the widow actually began to cry looking down and seeing players kneeling while the national anthem was going on. Matt Light was pretty vocal in saying that if he were still on the team, that would not have happened. So he said that wasn't the Patriot way. That wasn't the Patriot way, at least when he played for the Patriots. And I think he kind of called out the leadership of the team to say, why did you guys allow that to happen? Now, the leadership of the team, the captains on the team are guys like Brady and Matt Slater, who stood, and Devin McCourty, who did not stand. And so I guess there could be some divide there. But Light made reference to the fact that if he and Bruschi were still on the team, that never would have happened.
Right. I've heard those. I heard the same players say that, and at least we can agree that the social injustice that they speak about is a real thing.
It is a real thing. I don't for a second discount the fact that we've had some major issues in our country over the last 4 or 5 years with policemen and particularly
Minorities.
black minority and black people being shot by police officers, and it's very, very unfortunate. And I don't condone that, and I understand the reason why we have to remove that from our society. I just don't feel like that doing so during the national anthem is the right form. I think it says the wrong thing to the first responders. As you know, many law enforcement people are former veterans.
Oh, yeah.
So for them too, it's a slight for them. They're there at the game to protect the folks at the game, and their service is almost being discounted by
Correct.
people taking a knee.
And I think many people have share your opinion on that. Have you heard of Nate Boyer? Nate Boyer is he was a long snapper for the Seattle Seahawks. He's a Green Beret. Back when Kaepernick started this, he sat on the bench. And Nate Boyer was pissed off. Sent him a letter. They met for about 90 minutes in San Diego over the course of the off season, and they came up with a solution. And this was Nate Boyer's idea, is for him to kneel. He should have showed more respect than sitting. And there's been a number of veterans and people in the military that support their right to do that. I agree with you. I don't think it's the right place and right time, but I think it's their right to do it, and it's also their right to hear about it.
It's their right to do it, and because of the people that fought for our freedom, they have that right, and I agree with that. I'm not talking about whether they have the right or they don't have the right, but my personal opinion is that
Shouldn't have done it.
It's shameful that they don't have enough respect for the flag. I feel like, especially pro athletes, they have the exposure. They have the media exposure. Many times they have the financial means, and they have the forum of their owners. If they want to speak out about injustice like this, why can't they do so at some time other than during the national anthem? I guess that's how I feel.
Right.
They're at a post-game interview. They're at their locker. They want to talk about it. They want to start a foundation about it. Whatever they want to do, I'm fine with that. I just don't think that it sends the right message. And I've seen things where now you got Pop Warner teams and soccer teams with kids that aren't even old enough to know what it's about taking a knee.
Right.
So we're setting a bad example of disrespect for our colors, our flag, and our heritage by allowing that to continue.
Right. I don't disagree with that. I believe that, like I said before, they had the right to pick and choose where they want to demonstrate. They do also have to know that there's going to be consequences for that. I think it was a one-time thing. I think it was in support of the other players who were taking these beforehand, and we called that name to by the sitting president. And I think the owners took offense to that too, because he was basically telling them what to do with their businesses, and he was telling them what to do with people that are not just employees but family members. And in some cases, Kraft likes to give the smooch. He feels these guys are family members, and they felt personally slighted. I would feel a lot more pissed off, if you will, if it continued after the last week. I think it was a one-shot deal to the president. I think everybody's going to stand up. Danny Amendola was asked in the locker room, and he said he's under the impression that everybody will stand this week. I'd prefer if everybody linked arms from day one. That's a good way for me.
I know they're doing that tonight. That's going on tonight at Lambeau. In fact, I saw on the news that at Lambeau, the Packers are coming out with linked arms, and they're asking the crowd to do the same thing during the national anthem.
And that's good. As long as now, you have a lot of friends on Facebook. I have a lot of friends on Facebook. We're around the same age. I see a lot of people are against it, and they're against it because they say that there is no cause. That bothers me. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand about that there's a legitimate cause, and that kind of bothers me. So I got thinned out the herd on Facebook over the last few weeks. I'm sure you have too. So as long as we can agree that there is a problem, and it's not just the last few years, it's been going on.
No, listen.
For
I
30, 40, 50 years.
I believe there's no doubt there's a problem. I think in some cases there was a problem that was made into a problem that didn't exist. And my one example of that would be Michael Brown and Ferguson, where he supposedly was an innocent young man that was unarmed, and that there was no, that he didn't resist. etc. And
He did all that. He resisted.
He resisted.
He didn't have a weapon, but he did charge the cop.
And his DNA was found on the handle of the gun. So
Right.
he did try to grab the police officer's gun, and the police officer did what he needed to do to protect himself. Unfortunately, what that led to, what Ferguson led to, was unfortunately then a turn of events where there were now other episodes of policemen with taking personal stakes against young people, in many cases unarmed. There was the young man in Chicago that was shot 16 times. There was Freddie Gray in Baltimore. And unfortunately, in some of these instances also, I don't know that the policemen were held accountable to the degree they should have been. And there was the gentleman in South Carolina. There's no doubt there is a real bad situation going on with that needs to be corrected, and we need to figure out why that's happening, and come to a conclusion that we have a way to prevent that from happening. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but that's what needs to happen.
I want to play devil's advocate here, even though I don't agree with this. If the outcome of this is dialogue about this, about the situation, is it worth the demonstration? I flip-flop on that.
Yeah, well, okay. So if all of the players that are taking a knee are taking the knee for the same reason, and that is that they feel the social injustice of black people being shot by police officers, that's one thing. However, there's also this the gesture with the arm up, the black power. And what concerns me about that is I believe that all came together during the Malcolm X thing. Doesn't that kind of create some divide again of a separation between whites and blacks?
It could be seen that way. I mean, I think of it as those brave African Americans who won their gold and silver medals.
Yeah.
And put their hands up in the air.
Yeah.
And a young, Malcolm X was younger, and he was in charge basically under Elijah Muhammad of the Black Muslim movement in the 60s in the country. That's what it meant.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, the Black Muslim movement in the 60s actually met with the Ku Klux Klan because they wanted segregation. They didn't want to be involved with the white people. And then we know the Klan didn't want to be involved with the black people.
Right.
So back then, it can be construed that way, black power, because if you're going to make a gesture like that, you better know what it means. If you're going to make a demonstration like the kid you saw, the Pop Warner kid, or the girls at the soccer team, you got to know what you're doing.
Yep.
You know, and I would hope that their parents didn't know, or at least explain to them, you know, this is what it would mean, and this is what it could mean to other people, and this is what it might cost you.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot of copying going on.
Well, and that's the thing. If you, I guess you're right, and I would hope that, you know, I agree with your premise that potentially, if this leads to a better outcome and some of the social injustice is cured, that maybe this movement was the right thing to do. Maybe. My concern is that there's not a lot of people talking much about what the cause is.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of people taking a knee. There's not
On
a
both
lot
sides,
of people. Right.
exactly.
There's
I mean,
not a lot of people saying, "This is why I'm taking a knee."
Right.
And so, if they're not going to speak up and say what their reason is for taking a knee, then you can assume, I think, that there's an inherent message there of they're being disrespectful to the flag.
Right.
If they want to tell us that I'm taking a knee, and the reason I'm taking a knee is because I feel that there's an inequitable situation in the U.S. right now that we need to solve as a country, well then I guess that opens the dialogue and the forum to let's come up with a conclusion.
Right. I thought Devin McCourty's comments after the game were crucial. I mean, someone had to speak.
Yeah.
And I think he made it pretty clear. But like you said, I think you were, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I think you were getting to, is like everybody's talking about the problem, but where's the dialogue to solve the problem?
Right.
I haven't heard much of that from either side.
Right.
Now, Black Lives Matter, it started out as a grassroots organization. A long time ago. Didn't just happen didn't come in Ferguson. Long time ago. People who are upset, peaceful protesters, working people, hardworking people, had a cause. Just like the Tea Party was when that first came out, when Obama was elected president. Tea Party was real people, middle class, disenfranchised people saying, who's for me? Those are legit people. And then the Koch brothers funded the Tea Party. And then the alt-left funded Blacklight banners. And they became total, mercenaries for a cause that is buried because of what they are.
Well, and both organizations became somewhat rogue. I mean, you began to see Black Lives Matter protesters carrying signs like "Kill the Cops" and things like that, and that was not what the original movement was about.
Of course not.
But that's what it became.
Exactly.
And and here's the thing about Kaepernick.
I was going to say that, but go ahead.
Yeah, he wore the socks. He wore the socks that said, disrespectful socks towards what to do with a police officer.
Yeah,
shoot the
making
pigs.
bacon.
Yeah, making bacon, shoot
like
the
that.
pigs.
That's where he loses credibility.
That's a bad message.
Right. That's where also he loses credibility. If he's going to be the poster child, say demonstration happens, there's dialogue, we'll come together, kumbaya.
Yeah.
If Colin Kaepernick becomes the poster child of the reason this changed, that's kind of sad because where he loses credibility with me was not the socks, just the socks. He also wore T-shirts.
Yep.
And he didn't vote.
Yep.
He gives a lot of money to charities, fine, that's great. But put your money where your mouth is. Vote. Call the press, have them follow you to the voting thing and show them that you're voting for this. You're going to vote for the person who's going to make change.
Yep.
But no, he didn't do that. That's where he kind of loses a little credibility. The cause still remains, but he kind of loses a little credibility, at least in my eyes, when it comes to that sort of thing. So I think that unless you have more to add, we can get more to sports is supposed to be a unifier. Sports is supposed to be something that lets us hide from all our other problems and jump into sports because it's fun and it's a happy thing. But we're Boston sports fans.
Jim's not here to tell you this, but my fantasy team in Jim's league again was the lowest scoring team for the third week in a row.
Excellent.
I got absolutely shellacked by another team, so I'm probably not going to win the money at the end of the year. But
That's a shame.
I really have not done real well in Jim's league. I did leave a couple of players on the bench this past Sunday.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
And one of them was Stephon Diggs, who had 43 points. And the other one was Chris Hogan, who had 2 touchdowns. So I left, 45 points or about 65 points on the bench. Now, I wouldn't have won anyway, but I would have been a little more reputable. Jim seems to enjoy the weekly commentary that he gets to write about my team. On to another week. Let's hope things get better.
He picked Brady, and Brady's had some pretty good weeks.
He's had some good weeks. He leads the NFL in touchdown passes with 8.
He's decided to live by the
I am a
Brady
little concerned about the Patriots defense.
Yes.
People say in Bill we trust, and that's true. And Matt Patricia is, I don't have any issues with the coaching necessarily. I think Dante Hightower being out and Kyle Van Noy being the signal caller certainly is a problem because I don't think Kyle Van Noy knows the sophistication of the Patriot defense like Dante does, and so I think we've been exposed. I think that we've called some bad coverages or we've adjusted to some audibles at the line incorrectly, and we've exposed ourselves. And our defense is ranked 29th. The good news is that we have Tom, and I guess we're gonna be one of those bend not break type defenses this year where we're just gonna have to get into every game as a shootout and hope we can outshoot our opponent.
Right, and not only do we not want to see Van Noy with the helmet with the green dot making the decisions, but not that even if he made the right decisions, the guys are out there they're not talented enough to make plays.
Yeah.
And
Well, I do like that Dietrich Wise. I think he's done a good job with
the linebackers. Wise has looked pretty good.
Wise has looked pretty good.
Flowers has looked good.
Flowers has looked good. But I would agree that the guy with the Cassius.
Oh, the tattoos?
Yeah. You know who I mean.
What's his name? Yeah.
Anyway, he's a he's not a
Like a two-down guy.
Yeah, he's like a two-down guy, and I think Van Noy's okay, but he's not Teddy Bruschi, and
No.
And we're going to have to suffer through this period of time until we get. It hurts because we lost some guys, right? We lost Shea McClellan at the beginning of the season to IR, and
Vikovic quit.
Yep.
We got rid of
Yep.
what's his name from North Carolina, Carolina Panthers that
Yeah,
we decided couldn't play. We
easily.
went from a really had good depth to now like scrambling.
Yeah.
Like you haven't heard Harris, the guy we picked up from the Jets. Haven't heard anything.
He hasn't
done
gotten much
anything.
very big snap count either.
Yeah.
No.
So
And
yeah.
I did see today that a little bit of noise from Dion Lewis being upset about the fact that he's only played 32 snaps so far this year, and has only had his number called 12 times in the 32 snaps. So, I think what's interesting about that to me is that, I think Gillislee is truly our true running back. I do think James White and Dion are pretty similar players, but for some reason we have really not used those two guys both in the backfields at the same time, despite the fact that we've been pretty thin at wide receiver.
Yeah.
See, I would think in some cases you'd want to run a two-back set even in pass plays, so you have two potential dump-off opportunities with those two guys,
Yeah.
especially when you're banged up with your receiver core. So,
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes, like in this last game, if you're going to have two backs in the backfield, then you're going to give up your tight ends, and they needed every bit help to
well,
keep
there's no
guys off
doubt.
of Brady for that.
There's no doubt that
Sometimes I think the plan goes out the window.
I
but
think the chip by Gronk on J.J. Watt on his way out certainly helped us contain J.J. better had we not. And listen, that you're not going to find many teams that have that front with Merciless and Clowney and J.J. Watt. There aren't many teams with that many big three like that up front that can get to you that quickly.
Yeah,
So
we survived them.
yeah, I mean, we are going to go to Denver, and we're going to face something similar in Denver, but most of the other teams we're going to play aren't going to have defensive ends.
Why do we
like
always
that.
have to go to Denver?
I don't know.
What's up with that? Even with the years that we won, we still had to go to Denver.
Yeah.
That was crap. So, other than the defense, which we are last in every pretty much this statistical category, do we worry a little bit about this very expensive defensive backfield of Gilmore and McCourty and
Well, and that Jonathan Jones has actually taken some playing time away from Butler.
Right.
And
Jones kind of reminds me of Butler before Butler got to be Butler.
Right. Butler's, basically has come on the radio and said, I need to step up my game. I think he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He reminds me a little bit of Asante Samuel, where he wants to get paid before it's his payday, right? He wants that big contract, even though he's not at a point where he's a free agent yet, right? I mean, he's going to get that. He was a restricted free agent last year. Nobody wanted to make a deal with the Patriots, so he's had to stay in New England, sign his tender.
Yep.
Next year, he'll get an opportunity to be an unrestricted free agent.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I've been a little disappointed in some of the big plays that they've been giving up to some of the quarterbacks. I mean, Drew Brees is a good quarterback. But we gave up some really big plays to Alex Smith, who over his career is not a big play guy.
No, and one of the things I heard today on NFL Network when I was listening earlier was that they claim that Alex Smith seems to take more chances in seasons where he's got somebody looking over his shoulder than in seasons when he doesn't. And as you know, Kansas City has that Patrick Mahone who had a good preseason. They said that the year before Kaepernick took his job in San Francisco, he was throwing the long ball more and hitting receivers. And then, last year in Kansas City, he didn't have anybody that was breathing down his neck.
No.
So he didn't have to complete a pass to anybody but a tight end because there was nobody looking for him.
Light a little fire under their butt and see what happens with that. So the backfield giving up some plays. I'll tell you, I do like. I've noticed Gilmore is a really good tackler, which is something that we. Harmon was a good tackler. McCourty's a good tackler. Butler was a decent tackler, but we had some problems with the run. The linebackers being pretty much running around with their chickens with their heads cut off.
Well, I think we were exposed a little bit last Sunday with a you know when you saw how many times Watson kept the play alive because he could scramble away from our people, and he made a couple of throws on the run for essentially long third down completions that most quarterbacks wouldn't have made, that he made. And my concern this week is you got Cam Newton coming in, similar style quarterback. Did we give a script to the Panthers of here's how you beat New England, and if we don't contain Cam Newton, we could be in for the same thing.
Yeah,
and the difference is Newton's a more skilled passer, and Newton's been in the league longer. He's got more experience. We could be in for a tough test.
Yeah, and I also think we're going to get a heavy dose of Jonathan Stewart, their running back, and their other running back that they drafted, who they're really high on.
Yeah.
We're going to get a heavy dose of him too. It's kind of pick your poison. I mean, are they going to try to run it because we can't stop the run, or are they going to try to chuck it because we can't stop that either?
Well, they're a little. They don't have the most talented wide receiving core, but they do have that Kelvin Benjamin.
Right.
And the kid's like 6'5". I mean, he's a tough player, and I think Fonches will get some touches as well. But
Olsen's hurt.
He's
not going to be able to have his
and Olsen's been a big contributor for them over the last couple of years. So I think you're right that there'll be a more balanced offense this week with the run based on what they've seen so far from the Patriots. Right? I mean, unfortunately, we've given up a lot of yards on the ground. Not as much to the Texans as we did in the previous two games, but we gave up too many big runs that we shouldn't be giving up.
Right. I mean, last week we were on the verge of being 1-2, and it wasn't too long ago we were talking about 19-0. Well, we were discussing how 19-0 was probably ridiculous.
I guess the one nice thing about losing the first game is you kind of get that off your back, right?
Yeah.
It's done.
You don't have to worry about that.
We're not going 19-0. We're not running the table. Now we just got to make the playoffs. It's interesting to see the Jets and the Bills both won last week too.
Right. What about the teams who haven't won yet? Those 4 teams. 5: Cleveland, Cincinnati. Who else hasn't won a game yet? There's another surprising team. But I think the point I was trying to make is the teams that were supposed to be good going into the season kind of didn't pan out that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people expect a little bit better out of Cincinnati. They have good skill position players.
Yep.
A.J. Green's a terrific wide receiver. Andy Dalton is a serviceable quarterback, but he can make some of those back shoulder throws that are pretty difficult throws. I mean, he's got a guy like Green to throw it to, but he's that kid Joe Mixon they brought in from Alabama has been a good back, and they have Giovanni Bernard. They have a really nice tight end in Tyler Eifert, but like Gronk, he seems like he's hurt all the time. So Cleveland doesn't surprise me too much of being not having won yet. But I will say this about Cleveland: they are scoring points. So unlike years past where they were losing 31-10 and wide margins, they've been within 6 points in most of their losses this year, which means they are putting some points on the board, and that quarterback's done a pretty good job for them. So
isn't it nice to see Baltimore get pounded?
That was a nice can of whoop ass that the Jaguars opened on them.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody expected the Jaguars offense to be that explosive. I mean,
they didn't know who their quarterback was going to be.
Mercedes Lewis is a guy that's been in the league for a few years, and he's been, occasionally he'd give you a little flash.
Yeah.
But Blake Bortles hit him 3 times on Sunday in London, so they looked pretty good. And the other thing that I got the most pleasure out of was to see Joe Flacco get benched in favor of Ryan Mallett. That's never a good day for a quarterback. You know?
No.
So,
Yeah, I always enjoy to see Baltimore get pounded. Just because they had the Patriots number for a while. At least
Yeah,
not
yeah.
necessarily in the wins, but they
were always
rougher than them on the playoff.
Yeah,
and
formidable foe for sure.
they would always be able to get into Brady's mug.
And the Red Sox are got a magic number of 2. So we have the Astros.
By the end of tonight, they could very well have clinched.
Right.
If the Yankees lose and they win,
Yep.
Astros are still fighting for #1 spot though, so they're not going to lay down.
Well, agreed. I think the best scenario for the Red Sox, any way you slice it, is for the Red Sox to win the East and take at least 2 of the 4 games against the Astros. And the reason I say that is I want us to play. I'd rather play Houston than Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
I think whoever plays Cleveland is in for a tough series.
Mm-hmm.
So, Minnesota's going to go to Yankee Stadium. I don't see Minnesota winning that wild card 1-game playoff. I think it'll be
They haven't played well.
the
in a while.
Yankees and Cleveland, and I don't think the Yankees have the pitching depth that they can even stay up with Cleveland. But what I would hope for is that we at least get to the ALCS
Mm-hmm.
against Cleveland. Now, I'm not necessarily. This could be Cleveland's year.
Right.
On a side note, there's a side of me that wishes Houston would win out because I feel like it would be good for the city of Houston with what they've gone through to have something like the World Series come to Houston
Like
this year.
the Saints winning the Super Bowl.
Right,
after,
like the Saints winning the Super Bowl or the Red Sox winning the World Series after the marathon bombings. I always think those things are good for a city, but until the Red Sox are eliminated, I'm not willing to root for the Astros.
Good. That's a good side bet. Hedging your
Yeah.
bets there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So the Red Sox up until lately were kind of playing well, won 9 out of 11. Then were kind of
Well, Sale got lit up like a Christmas tree this week.
yeah. It
and
hasn't had a good maybe
his
8
last
weeks.
couple starts scared me a little bit. I hope that whatever's been going on with his stuff is going to reverse itself, and we're going to see the Chris Sale we were seeing most of the season.
Hopefully,
when
I
the playoffs
mean,
goes.
he's never pitched in the playoffs before. Hopefully, he can reach a new level.
Yep.
Maybe give us 6 or 7 innings. Because now we have this new guy on the team. All of a sudden, comes in for a couple innings and
Price.
is throwing. Yeah, who's this
The
guy?
pri-
Where'd he come from?
The price is right.
Apparently, it looks like this guy is going to make the team as a Andrew Miller type guy who can't pitch every day, but will give you a couple innings, maybe in game 1, game 3, and game 5.
I think I suspected differently with Price when he first came back in this role. I thought by this series against Houston, they would have stretched him out enough that he could start. But I think you're right that at this point, he's going to stay in that role where in the playoffs, if one of the starters gets knocked out in the 5th, they'll bring Price in to be the bridge between the Joe Kelly, Addison Reed, Kimbrel show. They'll use Price in that spot. So I would agree.
Now, so far he's been used, and I don't know that this is something he's been promised or he's asked for, but so far he's been used coming into a clean inning.
I did hear that I heard Farrell say that it would be they would prefer to be use David in clean innings. So apparently that must be a psychological component or something for him.
For a starter.
Right. He's
Someone
used to
who's
coming
used
in
to
with a
starting.
clean inning.
Right.
So maybe that's he doesn't have the psyche to deal with the runner on base or runners on base and has to clean that up. So
Could be. Could we possibly be seeing him as if we have a messy inning, Reed coming in and then Price, then Kimbrel? Is it something where we could flip flop?
Yeah, you probably could see that, but I think if it were that early, you might see Carson Smith before you saw Reed. I think you might see Carson Smith, Price, Reed, and Kimbrel.
So if someone's going to not pitch, it'll be probably like a Kelly.
Yeah,
or Barnes.
yeah. You know, the thing is, Farrell loves Barnes, and you know from how many, you know,
He does.
appearances he's had this year. He's approaching 80 appearances. You know that Farrell really likes him, but Barnes is one of those guys where he's either really, really good, or he's like batting practice, and
Yeah.
so you don't always know with him what you're going to get.
Sometimes he turns into Manny Del Carmen, where
Yeah.
it's like he comes into the game, he can throw 97, but
It has no
ball 1,
movement.
ball 2, ball 3, ball 4. Ball
Yeah.
1, ball 2, ball 3, ball 4.
Right.
So let's just go over to the offense. We've got some guys that are still hurt. We don't know the status of Nunez, if he's going to be able
Well,
to.
I saw that he just re-injured himself,
Yeah,
and
don't
I
know.
wondered if that was because they pushed him along too quickly.
which happens.
I don't know if that was the case, but he re-injured himself. That could be a problem for us.
Mookie Betts, I think, is going to. I don't know if he's playing tonight.
But he did say he's good to go. I did see
Right.
that.
I wouldn't mind if they gave him a little rest,
Yep.
which would go against
Well,
beating Houston.
I guess my theory was on Mookie was maybe you supplanted him into the DH spot and ran Chris Young out to play right field, so you weren't killing Mookie, but he was getting some at bats.
Right.
You know.
And I think I want to say Manny.
Hanley.
Hanley needs had some time off. He needs his at bats now. He
Yeah.
may be heating up. He had hit a bomb yesterday.
Yeah.
Hit a nice double, which should have been caught, but it was still a good hit. I think he needs to get all the reps he can up until the last of the
Yeah,
year.
we need guys with playoff experience too, and so you need a guy like Hanley in your lineup when we get to the playoffs. A guy that's been there, he's been through it,
Right.
he's dealt with it, and he can work with the people that are that maybe haven't played in a playoff game. You know,
Right.
you're going to have Benintendi who, while he played a little bit of playoff experience last year, he was such a novice and a rookie then.
Yeah.
It's a little different. Now there's a book on Benintendi. Pitchers know how to pitch to Benintendi. So he needs protection from a guy like Hanley to be able to still see his pitches and potentially do
Right.
something.
Moreland is kind of leveled off to what he is.
Yeah, his second half isn't nearly as good, statistically as good as his first half. He had a really good first half of the year, and after the All-Star break, he got off to that really good doubles run at the beginning of the year, and
I think it's stuck.
yeah, and Jackie Bradley as well. Jackie Bradley had a good first half of the season, and he's been an okay player the second half. His defense is incredible. He's still the funnest guy on the team to watch play defense. But his bat is, he's a 260 hitter right now. He's just nothing special. So.
He is, I believe, up for free agency 21 and Xander 20, and they are both Scott Boras guys.
Yeah, so both those guys are gone.
You think both are gone?
I do. I don't think how the Boras is. I mean, Boras is
Right.
historically.
Yeah.
Boras doesn't even like his clients to sign for the hometown discount, right?
He doesn't want them to take an early.
Yeah, if you remember, he held out J.D. Drew and he held out Stephen Drew, and Stephen Drew went a half a season not playing for anybody because he couldn't get him the money, and he certainly has a different approach than what we have when it comes to the way to negotiate with teams. But it seems like we probably won't see those two guys back. I mean, we lost Jacoby,
Right.
and at the end of the day, that was the right call with Jacoby, because I'll take Jackie over Jacoby. And the Yankees are into Jacoby now for
He just started playing well for him.
yeah.
But yeah.
But they're into him for 3 more years. He's not
there were
the same
times when
player.
he wasn't playing against lefties.
Yeah, they have him for 3 more years at about $20 million a year,
Yeah.
and he's on the downside.
Well, that's because Cashman's a genius. Haven't you heard that?
Yeah.
Everybody tells you he's a genius.
He's
He
a
knows what
genius,
doing.
all right.
I'd be a genius if I had a checkbook that just signed a signature and I could write in whatever I needed to get players.
Yeah,
I'd be a genius too. The reason I brought that up is during the course of the year when we love our outfield, but we weren't. There were times when they were all kind of slumping at the same time. would be nice to have that one thumper. And
We don't have a
you don't want to
thumper on
trade
the team.
Mookie, you don't want to trade Benintendi. Jackie is a Boris guy and is going to be gone in 2020. Would you, in the next couple of years, consider trading him?
I would trade him in the right situation. I would trade him for a thumper. I wouldn't trade him for pitching, but I would trade him for a big stick first baseman or a big stick outfielder.
Yeah, I think a big stick first baseman, if you're aggressive enough in the beginning of free agency, you can get one.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems that Ben Sherrington did when he was here as GM, because when he was in charge of the scouting, when Theo was the GM and Ben was in charge of scouting, we were at our best.
Yep.
That is the best the Red Sox will ever be and has been.
Right.
Now going fast forward to Ben as a GM, passing on Nelson Cruz for Hanley Ramirez has been a colossal mistake. If you look at what Nelson Cruz has done in the 4 years that he's been with Baltimore and with the Seattle Mariners. So those thumpers are out there.
And I also read earlier this week that we had a chance at Cleveland's Batista. Not Batista.
Yeah. Toronto's Jose Batista?
Yeah, we had a chance at him, but apparently because we signed Chris Young, we chose essentially what I was told is we decided to go with Chris Young instead of Batista, and we could have had Batista. And
if that was the choice, I'd obviously rather have Batista.
Yeah.
If in this day and age, they kind of cry about the luxury tax and don't want to spend too much money, which I think is a farce. If they're going to cry about that, I don't want them spending too much money on Batista because he's kind of done.
Yeah, well, he went back to Toronto this year for
Because no one wanted him.
Right, for like 12.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have given him 12.
And well, Chris Young was signed for 2, so you would have, if the year before he was a free agent, you would have given him 24 for 2. I think I would have done that. And let Chris Young not be on. Yeah, I would have done that.
Yeah.
Totally would have done that. Well, Chris Young had these crazy stats against righties.
Yeah, listen, Chris Young is a good fourth outfielder, but he just doesn't have the thump that we you know what? Chris Young would be fine if we, excuse me, if we had a 35 home run guy. We don't have that.
We don't have that. Back in the day, it used to be your first baseman or your third baseman, your left fielder or your right fielder. These were the guys.
Right.
One of those 4 spots, you better have 2 of them that can knock it out of the park,
who
are going to hit back-to-back in the lineup.
Well, in the DH era for us with the Red Sox, I mean, we had, when you think back, we had Nomar hitting 20, Manny Ramirez hitting 40, and David Ortiz hitting 35.
Yep.
And now we get, Mookie hitting 25, and Benintendi might get to 20,
Yep, and Bogart's really performing in the power department. I really think he was affected by that wrist, getting hit in the wrist, in the hand in July. It's still playing. I mean, if he sits out and doesn't play, we get all over him. If he plays and doesn't play well because he's fighting through the injury, kind of get all over him. So it's kind of a no-win situation.
It's funny though. He has not been as good with his stick this year as he was last year. If you remember, he was in the race for the batting title till late August last year.
He started out good, but I think it was even as early as late June, kind of started to before he got hit.
Right.
Now, when he got hit, all chances of coming back strong were out the window.
Right.
So, what we're looking at here now is if we win the division tonight, there's going to be a bunch of scrubs tomorrow, and so that's 2 Houston wins if we can win on Sunday. What would you think of that? You like the 2 Houston wins?
Yeah.
Right? So that's good. So we would be playing them almost immediately.
Yep.
And we would have our set up to be Sale Pomerantz. Is that what you want the first 2 guys to be?
Yeah, I think
lefty.
I did like that, although there was discussion about do we go Sale, Porcello, Pomerantz, so that we don't let them get too used to the left-handed pitching,
Mhm.
and would cause them to have to change their lineups a little bit, especially in the 5-game series, where when they came back to Fenway, they'd have to have a different lineup than what they had to use in Houston because of the lack of DH. I think it'll be interesting
Well, they
how
still
they
have a
play.
DH in Houston.
Oh, that's right.
They
were-
switched. Remember they switched?
Oh yeah, they switched. Sorry.
Yeah. But that is something to talk about if we get that far. Hanley going back to first base. I mean, he played a little bit.
Listen, I don't have any problem with him playing first base. I know he wasn't his first choice,
Yeah.
and Moreland is supposedly a really good first baseman. But if I have to choose between the two, whose stick I'm taking, I'm taking Hanley's.
Anytime, every time.
Yeah.
Every single time. So the Red Sox are playing tonight. I don't have a score update. If they win tonight and the Yankees lose, they win the East, and if they win tonight, win tomorrow night, regardless of what the Yankees do, they win the East.
Right.
So let's change a little bit for a couple minutes to the Celtics. They started camp this week, and they're going to play their first preseason game on Monday. NBA preseason is cut in half this year. It's only a couple weeks. They'll be playing mid-October on the road in Cleveland for their opening game. So it's coming up pretty quick. What have you seen since the trade? Have you heard any stuff? What's your impression
Not really.
so far?
It's so hard to tell. There's going to be a lot of new pieces. You don't know how people are going to fit in. I don't know. Hayward, Kyrie, how do they fit in with the players that have been on the team? How do they meld in?
Right.
How do they fit in with Al Horford? Who's the leader? Is it Al Horford? Is it Kyrie? Is it Gordon Hayward?
Right.
I think there's some interesting dynamic there. I think they'll be interesting to watch. I think they'll be fun to watch. But they'll definitely be a different team without Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder and some of those players that we had.
Right.
I think it'll be a different. I think it'll be a more of a finesse game than it was. Let's face it. IT was the guy that came out of the trenches and just kept banging the ball on you until it went in the net.
Yeah.
I think this group could be a little more surgical with the way they score their points.
And that's not a bad thing
Yep. No,
It's not a
I'm
bad
not.
thing.
No,
at all.
it's just a different. It's a different game.
So I was watching one of the press conferences with Brad Stevens, and he said that if he felt like he took a new job this year when he walked in and all these new players, it's more than a 50% turnover. The starting five this year is going to be Irving and Hayward and Horford and maybe even Baines
Yep.
and Brown,
Yeah.
possibly. They could have Morris in there, or who's another new guy, or they could start, depending on the night, they could start Smart at the 2. They could start this German guy.
Yeah, I think.
There's a lot of options.
I think Smart's always going to be your sixth guy from a defensive purpose. I don't know that I just don't think he puts up the points. I think he's a great defender, but
Right.
He's probably a better guy to come in and be a shutdown guy, a shutdown corner for you against the the Westbrooks of the world versus making him a starter, because I just don't know that that's
Right.
his role.
He's definitely not a 2 guard in the sense, but he doesn't have to bring the ball up to play the point.
Yep.
Kyrie could do his thing and shoot and pass. But I think you're right. I think only when we need to make a defensive stand or put the clamps on some team that he's going to make a big impression. What do you think about Jaylen Brown? Do you think he'll start this year?
I do. I think he had some pretty good promise towards the end of last season. I think he had a couple of really good games where he showed his talent.
Won a game in the playoffs with 3-pointer.
I think we could really be onto something, So
the Celtics kind of did something that was rare. They were able to live through rebuilding and still be really, really competitive, and come back and have a new big three. Right?
Yeah.
Between the time that they disbanded the first big three to the time we put together this big three, they were pretty competitive all along the way.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, before we got the big three, there was the season with when we won like 15 games or 16 games that season. Then the next year we had the big three and we changed things, and then the next year we went to the finals. I think you're right that Danny's been able to put a good product on the floor the last couple of years, even through what would be considered a rebuilding phase. He's a good talent evaluator, and I think he knows what he wants. So, I think it's exciting for Celtics fans to see what's ahead for the year ahead.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm one of those NBA wonks that I just love basketball. Call it a curse.
There you go.
Not everybody does. So no Jim this week. So
yeah, I don't know. I think he's out taking practice.
Taking a knee somewhere.
Taking a knee somewhere. Practicing.
So we've talked about this. Tomorrow night it starts homecoming.
Homecoming is a fun night.
There's a soccer game and then a little dance, a little bit of this.
There's a dance and then there's a bonfire.
Oh, that's tomorrow night. Oh, I thought that. Yeah.
Oh no, you're right. The bonfire is Saturday night.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Saturday, but there is a dance tomorrow night.
All right.
I know because I had to go dress shopping this week for
your dance.
Not
for
for me.
the girls. Okay.
Not for me, but I did have to go to the dress store, the Windsor dress store, and get a dress.
Really?
Yes.
It's that formal.
I guess.
Yeah, my daughter's a freshman, and she is would be absolutely humiliated if a boy even asked her to go to the dance. She would just run away. She's still, very, very, So I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't even ask her about it. I knew she wouldn't go. So, but I'll have to remember this next year. This could be a very formal. This could be a semi-expensive formal event here.
Well, and it's a good weekend for the kids. I think it's fun for the seniors. A lot. The seniors get honored this weekend.
Right.
They do the parents out on the field, and so I think it's a good weekend. And
you have to have a football team to have a good homecoming.
You do have to have a football. Yeah.
I remember when I was at Alvern, they tried to have a homecoming with soccer, and come on.
Yeah.
So, but
and
I do have
the
lights.
And I do have this week's Campbell update from
excellent
from AD Mills. He sent it to me today.
All right.
So I'll give you some updates. So the girls volleyball moved to 7-1. They had suffered a tough 5-game loss to top-ranked Winniscom, but they bounced back.
If you want to see some of those games, you should friend Pierre Garan on Facebook.
Pierre is often going
he goes
live.
To the games. His daughter's one of the captains.
Yes.
He's often Facebook living a lot of the games if you want to see some of the highlights.
Yeah. We came back to beat Portsmouth Christian in 3 games. And we had some real good play. Senior Gabby Sott had 17 kills and 5 digs. Cassidy Gibbon had 2 aces, 8 kills, 2 digs, and 3 blocks. Mercedes Diaz had 2 aces, 3 kills, 2 digs, 2 blocks. Mary Kiskowski had 33 assists, 1 dig, and 2 blocks. So
wow.
Pretty impressive numbers from those girls.
Triple-double.
Yeah, and then, some other players. Maddie Travanes had 2 aces and 6 kills in the game against Portsmouth Christian. Cleo Schultz had 6 kills, and again, Gabby Sott with 2 aces, 7 kills, and a block. As I told you, football, they gave up 9 points, but they're 4-0. They won this past weekend 61-9, so another close game.
Who was that team?
That was Newmarket Epping, which until this weekend had a high-powered offense. Campbell held them to 43 total yards. The offense was led by Garrett Walker, Keegan Mills, Carter Verani, and Cam Barrett. The Cougars got touchdowns from Ryan Yaniszewski, Keegan Mills, Nick Boucher, Adam Breton, Dylan Potslucker, and Chad Martell added a field goal. So pretty good stuff there. To date, the Cougars have outscored their opponents 208 to 9. So we play against the Giants of Bishop Brady, 7 p.m. Saturday night.
The homecoming game.
Yep.
Do we play the same team every year, or is it just whatever?
No, it's generally the same 8 teams.
Oh, okay.
But it's every other year. So if we play this year,
we'll go to them next year.
Yeah, we'll go to them next year. Yep. Girls soccer defeated Laconia on Tuesday 6-1. They'll take on rival Hopkinton tomorrow at 4 to kick off all of the homecoming games. Boys and girls cross country Saturday, the 23rd, was the 43rd annual Manchester Invitational, which was held at Derryfield Park. The girls varsity team competed in the small school division where they went up against 30 scoring teams. The girls received a plaque for coming in 4th place overall. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You know. Leading the pack for Campbell was senior Caitlin Callanan in 20th place, followed by 6 freshmen. Cassie Hemming in 23rd, Riley Gamache in 27th, Megan Whitnell in 35th, and then Lindsey Brown came in 100th, and Izzy Rustino was 101st. Liz Breton was 102nd. Medals were earned by Caitlin, Cassie, and Riley for finishing in the top 30.
Wow. Freshmen are doing well.
Yeah, the boys varsity team competed in the small school division as well. They went up against 38 scoring teams. Jeffrey Allen, who's very well.
I'm trying to get him to cut my lawn.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll cut your lawn, but he can run a pretty good race.
He'll cut it too fast.
He may cut it too fast. He actually medaled in the event. Luke Hogan was in 43rd place. Sophomore Tyler Scopolidis was in 52nd place, and his twin Trevor came in 68th place. So one twin beat the other twin by 14 spots. So overall, the golf team traveled to the always tough Shattuck Country Club on Wednesday, but fell to Conant, Derryfield, and Kearsarge. Freshman Sean Ryan shot the low score for Campbell. So that's the Campbell sports
I was
update.
on the golf team in high school.
You were on the golf team?
For Auburn,
Yeah.
Back in
Were you the
1989.
caddy, or did you actually play?
I played, but
Oh wow, good for you.
not very well. It went downhill ever since. Now I don't even play anymore.
So that's the Campbell update, and don't forget to support them this weekend. Support the press box.
Buy a brick.
Buy a brick.
I'll be buying a brick in memory of my dad.
Support the Booster Club.
They need sign-ups for concessions still?
They probably could use some help with the concessions. Certainly Saturday night is a hectic night.
There's a Sign Up Genius link going around. Why don't you put it on your Facebook page? I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I will.
Put it on our on the Fantastic page, and we'll try to get that
that's
up.
what we'll do. I'll ask Jennifer Kidwell or Kara Gannon or somebody to give me the Sign Up Genius, and I'll share it on my page, because with the high viewership of our program, there's certainly a lot of people that will probably sign up.
Yeah, I've seen 2 people watching. No comments today.
No
before we even started, Pete, I don't know how to say his last name, Slidas?
Yep.
Said no more kneeling no more kneeling. So he didn't want us to talk about it at all.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we didn't get a lot of viewership.
Well, but we did transition pretty well.
I thought we
off of
did.
it. Yeah, I mean,
we did.
you know.
Oh, somebody's thumbs upping us.
Oh,
All right, so that's good. So that's all the time we have this week.
Yep.
Next week we'll be able to tell you how.
maybe we'll find out what Jim was doing that was more important than the TV program.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything.
Me either. I don't know.
So we'll be able to tell you by how many points the football team has won this week.
Yeah, exactly. So, see you next week.
See you next week, Fantastic Sports Show. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.